So the Federal Reserve did something today that everybody was already expecting. They raised interest rates by 75 basis points. Now, the Federal Reserve does this in an attempt to slow down inflation. But by raising rates, it also increases the risk of a recession, which many economists believe that we have a 50% chance of being in a recession by the end of 2022. And we also have a key GDP data release that's coming tomorrow that's going to tell us whether or not we had 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. If we have 2 consecutive quarters, we are technically in a recession. However, there's a group of 8 committee members that will actually tell us whether or not we are in a recession. And this is what President Biden is saying they are not going to do. And just to give you an idea, they probably will not do this for multiple months. Probably 6 months, if not more, after we're already in a recession. So, I want to go over what a recession really means for people that are on Social Security, for students with student loan debt, for families with children, and businesses, because this is key. Now, first, I want to talk about what a recession really means for people on Social Security, because most people would assume that during a recession, the current administration would provide greater benefits to those on Social Security. But that is not the way it actually works. Here's the reason why. During a recession, businesses tend to lay off more workers, which means there's not as many workers paying into the Social Security system. And because of Social Security revenue from today, this is what's actually paying the current benefits. So you probably thought that Social Security benefits that I paid in 10 years ago are paying for me today, right? That's not the case. Social Security benefits that are pretty much accumulated today are paying for current benefits. This is a problem. And this means that if there's less people paying into the system, this means there's less money. So if you thought you will see an increase to benefits, well, this isn't in the cards. And not only that, but the longer and more severe a recession is, the more financial stress will be placed on the Social Security fund. So in the future, Social Security could become insolvent. That's a major concern. So even though there are lawmakers that are requesting Social Security get expanded, the problem is that's not likely if we dip into a recession. So just keep that in mind. Now, what about students? And what about student loan forgiveness? This has been the talk for the past year, is President Biden has the power. Well, the truth is that as of right now, there's multiple discussions as to whether or not President Biden actually does have the power and the authority to forgive student loan debt without congressional approval. Well, what this means is that President Biden's only move at this time could be to extend the student loan payment pause once again. And that's the likely option moving forward. If we dip into a recession, some expect a student loan payment pause extension is the most likely outcome. Because according to a few reports, the United States wouldn't want to put itself into a position to forgive more than $1 trillion in student debt when we could actually use that money to help fund other priorities, especially in a recession. Because when we're in a recession, what normally happens is people spend less money, unemployment's going to go up, right? Hopefully we did not see inflation stay over 9%. That would be a major disaster, but there's a lot of things that we need to figure out and prioritize. And some say just forgiving student loan debt for something somebody has already accepted is not the way to go. So even though Democrats say that they're all for the people, according to multiple experts, Democrats would not put the people before the well-being of the United States economy. So just keep that in mind. And what about families? What about families with children? What could be coming to them during a recession? Well, here's what I can tell you. For families, there is more benefits coming during a recession. Here's the reason why. If we see a massive amount of layoffs in conjunction with another surge of COVID cases before the end of 2022, then there could be a lot more relief. there are a lot of lawmakers right now that are discussing different options. But just keep in mind, there could be more relief coming from a federal level as well as from the state level. However, according to recent reports, the most likely outcome for families is to see a larger child tax credit. This is something that multiple lawmakers are currently working on. They're also considering raising the income limits, which would, by raising the income limits, this would actually help middle income households, because the middle class is getting squeezed, and we are seeing that the middle class could be completely done away with very soon. We could also see a larger deduction for childcare and here's the biggest thing, and let me know if you've ever, if you have children, if you've ever come across this. But let's say you got a 2-income household, right? The 2 spouses work, and one decides, you know what, it's not worth my time to go to work when I'm taking my whole salary and paying it to a childcare service. Why wouldn't I just stay home and raise my own child? Well, that's the thing. There's many families that are somebody staying home to take care of the child until they are old enough to go to school. And the thinking behind that is, if we don't have this huge deduction for childcare, why would I send all my money away if I'm not going to get anything back, right? So one way to combat this from a congressional level is, let's give a larger tax deduction for childcare. Let's make sure that people can get more money back if they're paying in, because that means there's more people going to work. Children are going to childcare services, which means there needs to be more childcare providers, right? More tax revenue coming in. That's the kind of the thought process behind that. So again, we could see more relief to families with children, and it's because from a congressional level and from a revenue standpoint, more money would come in if we sent more out. So that's kind of the thought process behind that. Now, let's talk about businesses for a moment. I want to talk about businesses for a moment because small businesses are the ones that are going to be negatively impacted by a recession. Because this is going to mean that consumers are not spending money like they used to. And the fact that millions of small businesses are actually on the verge of closure already is not a good sign. Especially if we dip into a recession, then it's just a higher chance that more businesses are going to close. But we also know workers are not coming back to work like many people expected them to. This is causing a lot of lingering problems. And then the fact that today, Senator Joe Manchin and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, they acknowledge that they have come to an agreement to impose a 15% minimum corporate tax. So what this means is that businesses are likely to pass on extra costs to the consumer so that their profit margins don't fall. Here's the problem. If the costs are passed on to the consumer is actually spending more money than they were before, chances are they're going to spend less money. So what you need to keep in mind is that businesses are going to lay off more employees if we dip into a recession. They're going to try to maintain their profit margins. But the tough thing is a lot of businesses are going to close. So keep in mind right now, the toughest thing is that a recession is going to impact us all. But some good news is that according to a few reports, according to a few experts, they are saying that any recession that we dip into will be slight. Okay, slight. It's just going to be a quick little dip. We'll dip into recession. We'll get out of there as quickly as possible. So we'll see whether or not this actually happens, but just wanted to fill you in on what's actually going on, what experts are saying, and what this means to people on Social Security, people with student loans, for families, and for businesses. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. Again, just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.